To me, an innovation district, a science park, an R&T park, it's just an amplification of that. It's like-minded people that want to have a relationship with the university, covet the brand of a university, and feel like it adds to their brand and their success. To me, it's just a startup incubator on steroids.
Hello, and welcome to the Pathway to Impact podcast series. My name is Todd Davey, Associate Partner at UIN, and I'm your host for today. For this week's podcast, we've invited Carol Stewart, the Vice President of TechParks at the University of Arizona, to delve into the pivotal role of TechParks in fostering innovation. Join us as we explore this dynamic relationship between academia and industry and how it has driven significant economic impact and talent development in the region. Welcome everybody to the fireside chat that I will be having with Carol Stewart, who is the Vice President of TechParks at the University of Arizona. She is the former CEO of the Association of University Research Parks and also the founder and president of the same organization in Canada. She is formerly the North American Division President of the International Association of Science Parks and Areas of Innovation. And in 2022, won the Women of Impact in Research and Innovation Award at the University of Arizona. Now, there's many other things that I could mention as well, Carol, but welcome. Really looking forward to speaking to you today. And maybe just to kick us off, perhaps you could tell us a little bit about your role and activities at the University of Arizona.
Thanks very much for the invitation, Todd. I know that we haven't seen each other in person since last year's conference. Looking forward to this year's in Madrid. I know that I've got two panels that I'm preparing for, so I'm very excited about that. So Carol Stewart, Vice President at the University of Arizona. I lead the TechParks division, which means I'm CEO of two TechParks and President of the Startup Incubator Network, the UA Center for Innovation. I'm a crazy Canadian that is down in the US. So I was also the founding director of the University of Waterloo's Research and Technology Park. And I was there building it from the ground up, from a cornfield to 1 million square feet and 3,000 knowledge workers for 13 years. And that's where I cut my teeth on the innovation, the place-based innovation model. Really was excited to come down to Tucson. They had a lot of the right ingredients when it comes to world-class startup incubator system and a robust science park and innovation district network. They courted me down and I'm here for a couple more years.
I'm sure they're delighted with their choice. Carol, what I would like to explore a little bit more is obviously your extensive experience in this area and coming to bear at the University of Arizona because of the strong reputation for innovation that the university has. How does your role and also the technology part contribute to and support the vision of the University of Arizona?
So the University of Arizona, it's very similar to the University of Waterloo as far as number of students. They both have about 50,000 students, so fairly large institution. A big difference, though, that I found when I came down to the University of Arizona is the level of research. So we are just shy of $1 billion of research. We had $955 million in research last year, which I think, again, contributes to our strong reputation for innovation. But I think what's really important for the tech parks and our startup incubator is to mirror the land grant mission of the University of Arizona. There's only one designated land grant institution in each state. And so we are that institution in Arizona, which means that we have a responsibility for outreach. We need to go out, we need to support rural areas and the tribal nations that are in our state. And we have 22 tribal nations, which is a very high number for any state. When we look at the research park and our second research park that we've gotten off the ground, we're looking at our third science park. Our incubator network also has a number of outposts that are in smaller regions as well. And so that's our responsibility to fulfill that mission for the university. We are a separate 501c3, which is a nonprofit, not-for-profit, which allows us to work at a different speed than the university itself. And we are self-funded. So again, we can work a little faster and we can work independent of the institution and the same policies to make those rural opportunities happen quickly.
It's quite challenging, though, to be in that position. Obviously, the university has its original missions of education and research. How does that align or collide more generally with the missions and the vision of the university?
We never lose sight. Everything we do is for the benefit of the Arizona Board of Regents and the institution. But, our mission is to be sort of a sandbox between those two, or a bridge where industry and academia can come together and collaborate for a positive impact for the prosperity of Southern Arizona. That is our mission. And again, it's working outside of the traditional and being that place where government, academia, and industry can come together to collaborate and be really innovative outside the norm.
Just drilling into that a little bit more, I wanted to know, because again, it's the university environment, as we know, is quite unique. How do you then foster collaboration and connections between the internal environment and also then externally with some of the actors that you mentioned, such as industry and even government stakeholders?
With any science park or research and tech park, there's very specific criteria of who can become tenants. And so it's really important to remember those factors when you're either courting or receiving a prospect, that there needs to be some sort of connection with the university. That could be interns, that could be hiring grads, that could be collaborative research projects, that could be usage of core facilities. There's multiple levels that can happen on. And so we are really the facilitators for that. We're the ones that are putting people together. We are the ones facilitating the introductions, mapping to the right people within the organization, because it's really difficult. And this is the essence of UIIN, right? It's really difficult to navigate your way onto these massive campuses to the one exact right person that you need to talk to. So we are really facilitators in making those connections so that the university becomes very successful, and the corporation that we're working with as well, so that we're advancing both of those missions and visions for those very different entities.
And maybe just picking up as just something a little bit more specific around your role. We've mentioned obviously the collaboration and connections that you're forming. Maybe we can talk a little bit more about strategic partnerships specifically, and how you utilize the technology park as a base, if you like, you said, as a bit of a sandbox for building these strategic partnerships. And I do mention in particular one collaboration that we're aware of, the Raytheon Missiles and Defense case. So perhaps you could just talk through that a little.
We are actually located on a former IBM campus, and we have 2 million square feet. One of the major tenants, in addition to IBM, is Raytheon. They have 750,000 square feet of engineering and research and development here on site. In the region, they are a major employer. So we have thousands of employees here in those 750,000 square feet. In the region, they have there's 10 or 15,000. So anything that has to do with production, assembly, that is off-site. So we are really focused on that R&D and engineering side of the corporation. They are scouting for innovation within the university. So that's done on a regular basis. I think 2/3 of their employees are coming out of the University of Arizona because of the specializations in the optics, school, hypersonics. We have many collaborative research that have their index of innovation that they're interested in. And so we have many collaborative research projects. And they're also looking to hire and work with interns and cultivate grads, because it is a company that requires security clearance. The longer you work with the students, the interns, and the grads, you're going to have employees that can hit the ground with the right security clearances to work with an organization like that, a defense contractor like that, and move right into being a productive employee much quicker than hiring somebody that you've seen for the first time. So it really is a big part of it is workforce development as well.
That's really interesting. I'd love to pick that up a little bit more, because that's not often what you hear from somebody responsible for a technology park, is actually talking about the talent development and if you like,
Absolutely.
the talent pipeline, and also the educational programs. It sounds like the University of Arizona has some significant alignment between the educational programs they're developing, the design and delivery of those curricula, with outside partners as well, such as Raytheon. Is that the case? And if so, how is that facilitated?
Absolutely. We just stood up. So Arizona is becoming known as the semiconductor capital in North America. In response to that, there's been billions and billions of dollars of investment made for that nearshoring exercise that's going on right now after COVID. And so we stood up an institute that is very specific to the semiconductor industry. And I got to tell you, the one thing that keeps CEOs awake at night, when somebody a prospect lands at our door, they're like, talk to me about talent. That's what keeps CEOs awake at night is talent. So that's every one of our conversations. We're talking about workforce. And whether that's from our community colleges, whether that's from our post-secondary institution, it's all about workforce. And we're seeing now that it is becoming multi-level. Like we need to have the community college right in step with the university, because a lot of times in the bioscience, life science areas, the companies that we're seeing coming in, they need technicians. They don't need employees with 4-year degrees. They need somebody with 2 years of very specific lab training. There's a lot of effort in our community to collaborate and get that workforce piece right.
Okay, so when you're looking at, for example, the sort of partners that you might hope to attract, what are the sort of things that you might be looking for? It sounds like there's a piece around talent and the connection to talent, but perhaps you could elaborate a little bit on that.
Sure. When we're attracting new foreign direct investment, FDI attraction, we focus in on obviously the areas of expertise that align with the university, because to us that equals workforce. So that's the way that we approach it. So aerospace and defense, mining is actually, we have a top mining school. We're looking at creating a corporate innovation hub on our operational mine that does certifications, training, military exercises. A lot of people think that mining is a dirty word, but we are working on technologies to make the mines cleaner, safer, and a much better neighbor than they ever have been in the past. So mining and aerospace defense, optics and photonics, one of the top schools in the world. We also have a lot of alternate energies, sustainability and resiliency is in water research. We're number one actually in the world in that area. So a lot of that aligns with, what we're doing as far as FDI. We have a 223-acre solar zone for testing and demonstration of new technologies. We have 8 companies that are testing 10 different technologies that are at the grid level. We do a lot of DOE, Department of Energy work. So at any given time, we're probably working with 50 to 70 companies that are being sponsored by the Department of Energy. So hence that sustainability effort. Yeah, so those are the sectors that we work in. And we find that lining them up with the specialization of the university is really where the success happens. And we have that mantra. You've seen one research park, you've seen one research park. There's fundamentals that are the same, but they are always different because they do align with their institution's strengths. So that's where they are very different from each other.
I'd like to pick that up a little bit later, but I just wanted to go on to the subject of high growth companies and startups. To what degree do you orientate your activities to these sort of organizations, and what sort of activities or what sort of support are you providing?
The UA Center for Innovation, UACI for short, is our startup incubator. And I'm Canadian, so I have to use the hockey stick. We've had some hockey stick success with our program. I've been here 5 years. And in the last 2 years, we've gone from a handful of startups in our program for over 15 years to the last 5 years, especially the last 2 years, we've had 60 to 80 companies in our startup incubator program. And that program is very personalized. As we know, startups are not linear. We do a baseline with them, find out where their knowledge gaps are. We share our program with anybody that's interested. We have a 28-step roadmap. And we see it, it's funny, we see it on people's billboards, their cork boards when we're on Zooms with them. We're like, hey, we know that program. So we share it. But we do have a number of high growth companies that are in that program. We've got 40 to 50% of them that are life science. So their runway is a little bit longer. We only service science and tech companies. Anything that's lifestyle or food or retail based, we have people in our ecosystem that support that. And I think that's an important point, is to really map out your ecosystem, whether it's internal to the university. And Todd, we've gone through some of the UIIN programs, which really helped us organize our continuum within the university, but how does that fit within the overall community eco map? So I think it's really important to do that so everybody knows their specialization, and then you don't have all these fiefdoms being built and the struggle for ownership And I know our community is not the only one that goes through that. So I think it is a really important exercise. And like I said, UIN helped us through our university continuum that we created. And I should share that with you, Todd, where we landed on that as a follow-up. But yeah, so we are really that place for startups to start and scale within the tech park. We have the services, we have the specialized infrastructure to do that, whether it's wet labs, dry labs, touchdown space, and then obviously full R&D space as well.
I think that provides such a rich picture of what you're actually doing and just the programs that you have in place specifically for those sort of organizations. And thank you very much for the compliment for the UIN institutional program dedicated to
Oh, it was great. It
entrepreneurial
was
university.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just wanted to pick up, I guess, for those that might be listening, they may or may not have access to a tech park. And so I guess I wanted to ask you the question, to what degree does having a tech park matter? And maybe you could give us where it matters and where you think for those that don't have a tech park that they can draw upon, what are some of the lessons that could be still applied in that sort of a context?
Sure. To me, it's about community. So it's like-minded people being together. It's no different than a startup incubator. You know, you need that water cooler time to support one another, to bounce ideas off of one another. To me, an innovation district, a science park, an R&T park, research and tech park, it's just an amplification of that. It's like-minded people that want to have a relationship with the university, covet the brand of a university, and feel like it adds to their brand and their success. So to me, it's just a startup incubator on steroids. Like I said, what area of innovation district, whatever that is, that connection with a world-class institution for the workforce, for the collaborative research is really important to those companies that land in a science park.
I also wanted to just explore a little bit about the sort of impact that you are creating, because as I'm sure you're aware, the demand on tech parks and also people in your position around strategic partnerships and management of tech parks, there's this need or desire to quantify or to measure the sort of output or impact that you're actually creating. So I just wanted to explore that a little bit to understand how you're actually capturing that information. What sort of information are you capturing in order to document the sort of work that you're doing and the success of it?
Okay, are you sitting down? Are you sitting down? These are big numbers.
I am actually.
So we do regular economic impact studies, and we are actually going through that exercise and doing one for our startup incubator because it's really not incorporated into our tech park impact study. And we are an employment hub of, like I mentioned before, about 6,000 knowledge workers. We're actually located on 1,300 acres, so there's lots of opportunity for new development. We have 100 plus companies in 2 million square feet of R&D and engineering space. And our annual impact is $2 billion a year to the state of Arizona, which is pretty incredible. And I mentioned the startups that we already had. We now have 60 to 80 startups in our UACI program. It's the largest and highest concentration of startups anywhere in the state. So we are getting noticed. People are watching to see how we're doing. And we actually, because our counterparts up at ASU did a 30-year projection. Our 30-year projection is an economic impact of $108 billion over the next 3 decades. The numbers are there. They're incredible numbers. And I'm just one of the luckiest people to be leading this organization.
Indeed, some fantastic numbers that you mentioned. And obviously the scale of the university, there's other universities globally that might not be able to exactly match that scale. But one of the things that you perhaps could give some insights into is, you mentioned getting noticed. How do you get noticed in this sort of a role? Obviously, having a tech park gives you some ability to be noticed, but some tech parks could be out in the middle of nowhere. They're not exactly being noticed. So how do you draw attention to the activities and also to the facilities?
First of all, we have top-notch facilities. You've got to build a really strong team. My team, we have just under, and this includes the entire incubator group of 11 or 12 people, including SMEs, subject matter experts, mentors and residents, core team. And then my team for the tech park, we're just shy of 24 people. And I think we've actually done the math. We have 160 years of combined experience running a science park, which is really incredible. People have been here for 25 years, 15 years, 12 years. So really a lot of depth in my team. I am truly lucky for that. So team is definitely one of those, but we celebrate everything. We celebrate everything. So whether it's a startup getting a $10,000 check to Raytheon getting a $100 million contract or a $300 million contract, we celebrate everything, which gets noticed. And we also, on the startup side, not everybody gets into our program. They have to be ready to come into our program. There's an application process. We don't just take everybody. We put them on a path to graduate, which I think is important. We can't have startups living in our incubators for 10 years. And we've got the right subject matter experts that surround them to go get funding and to really propel them faster, to move out of the fledgling stage into a sustainable company and a scaling company. But we celebrate everything. We're easy to work with our economic development partners, our state partners. Something that's interesting is we are actually, and again, I know this is unique, it's probably less than 5% of the science parks in North America anyways. We are completely self-sufficient. So we get no funding from the university. There's 3 of us that are actually university employees. We pay our full wages back to the university plus administration fees. And the revenues that we make on the tech park helps us fund the startup incubator network as well. It's the university gets to come, the president comes, cuts the ribbons, get all the accolades, but it's our work that actually does all the funding for that, which we're very proud of to do on behalf of the university. So a very interesting sort of unique financial situation for us, and that we know is a luxury.
And in terms of your team, you mentioned that you had built a very strong team. And in terms of the numbers, I think you mentioned 24 that you had there.
Yeah.
I just wanted to explore a little bit more about what sort of skills and competencies are you looking for when you bring people into the team? Obviously, there might be a range of different things you're looking for, but to
Sure.
what degree have they been involved in a university before, or have perhaps been along a research pathway? Or conversely, on the other side, to what degree have they had business experience, startup experience, all that sort of stuff?
That's a really interesting question, Todd. Nobody goes to school to become a research park leader or to become an executive in a research park, right?
They should. It's
So,
a very admirable profession. There's no doubt about that.
right, but nobody goes to school with that as their outcome. So it's really interesting looking at my team. A lot of them have grown up professionally within the tech park system and on this team at the UA Tech Park in Arizona. And they've just gotten better. They're very passionate. I think that's the one thing that you have to bring to these roles is passion. No day is ever the same. I agree with you, Todd. It's a great lane to be in. There's only 600 people that do what I do in the world. There's science park leaders. So we are very much a niche area, but every one of the people on my team is passionate about what they do. And so if you've got the passion and you've got the willingness to learn, you can grow your career within a science park or an innovation district. Absolutely.
You've talked about the University of Arizona, and that's been fabulous, very rich information. I just wondered if you could perhaps reflect on your time at Waterloo and maybe draw upon some success factors there.
Sure. So very different. So the University of Waterloo was ranked for 28 years straight the most innovative university in Canada, which is quite a track record. It was founded by businessmen and back in the late 50s. And so a fairly young university. And the outset goal was we need to create engineers for Canada. And so it was an engineering school right out of the gate. So it was not a business school. It was hardcore engineering. And the intellectual property laws are quite different in Canada than the US. In the US, we have the Bayh-Dole Act, which means the university always retains the intellectual property and then licenses it back to the inventor. In Canada, traditionally, and University of Waterloo was, I can't say it was the first one, but one of the first to switch that up, and the IP was owned 100% by the inventor, which automatically created an entrepreneurial spirit and mindset within the institutions. University of Waterloo is light years ahead of most institutions in North America. I can't speak for the world. At any given time in Waterloo region, which is a population of, I think, 600,000 people, there are thousands of startups, and that's a mix of student startups and startups spinning out of the university. So it is a very powerful entrepreneurial ecosystem. And so when we started the tech park, it was really important for us to organize the incubator around that. It was just ranked one of the top startup incubators in the world for its category last year, I believe. And so very sophisticated. And it really is the cornerstone of the tech park. And like many of the companies that spun out of there, I believe they have 5 or 6 unicorns that have come out of that program and an IPO. Just what we're doing 100 times faster. We're following their headlights on the highway. Let's put it that way. And hope to have our first unicorn spin out of our program as well.
Fantastic. Thanks for elaborating a little bit on that and giving us a bit of an insight into how the University of Waterloo also activates this sort of this sort of activity. Unfortunately, we are heading towards the end of our fireside chat.
How is that possible, Todd? That
it
felt
has
like a minute.
gone incredibly. I know it's gone incredibly quickly. And for that reason, what I wanted to ask you was just to give, I guess, 1 or 2 sentences for anybody in the sort of position that you're in. Where should they focus their efforts in order to achieve success in this area?
One of the mantras that we have, and again, because we are separate from the university, we have a mantra and it's be bold. This is our job, is to be bold, to be creative, to be leaders in our communities, in our regions, and in our state/countries. We need to think big. We need to really push the envelope in creating solid ecosystems. And you know what? If something doesn't work, that's okay. We need to act like startups a little bit in that area. So something doesn't work, pivot and go in a slightly different direction or 180, whatever's required. But I think because we're outside of the bureaucracy of the large institutions, that we can be bold at a different level than our academic counterparts. So as an executive team, as a full team at the Tech Park, we talk about being bold every day.
Well, I think that's a great way to wrap up for today. Carol, it's been a fabulous journey. Thank you so much for your contribution, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in Madrid.
Well, see you there, Todd. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to today's discussion. Follow UIIN on LinkedIn, and if you're enjoying our podcast, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review in your podcast platform of choice to help other people find this content too.